Oliver Stone is an American phenomenon. His latest film, JFK, has generated enough copy on both sides of the Atlantic to paper the walls of a Hollywood soundstage, and enough debate to make him a national figure, as well as the most controversial film director in America today. Stone now stands accused of paranoia, lying and manipulation, everything in fact short of treason. His defence has been robust and unapologetic, as it has had to be throughout his career. Last year, a Sunday Telegraph profile said, "He's been wallowing around in the primordial soup ever since he emerged from the Vietnam jungle, and he still hasn't come up with the goods." Pauline Kael, doyenne of film critics, claims she retired so she would never again have to sit through an Oliver Stone movie. The counterclaims have been equally extravagant. As Oliver Stone has become one of the most powerful and the most private figures in Hollywood, his films have been subject to intense scrutiny. Tonight, Arena looks instead at Oliver Stone the man and his life before JFK.
Guys, she's sucking my blood. This documentary's gonna suck anyway. Quiet!
Big man, do not believe what he says. He's a Soviet puppet,
Come on, guys, we ain't gonna make it.
Hipócrita, fuerte, hijo de puta, comunista de mierda. Okay.
You spit it all?
Yeah, I will.
Spit it.
Oliver is not afraid to be the recipient of your anger and your hostility if it makes for a better picture, because all that's important in the end is the film. And I'm happy to call him a friend today, but I couldn't call him that during the shooting.
Is Oliver a good friend?
That is the very easy answer. Oliver is the best friend, and the best enemy. Means if you are friend with Oliver, you must be his friend all the way. If you are his enemy, like the critics they are, you must be his enemy all the way.
My best image of Oliver, we started writing in Los Angeles, and he says, "Have you ever been out to the desert?" And I said, "No, I'm in LA, I don't know anything about deserts." And I have this image, like something out of a Sam Shepard play, of a desert, and there's a shack out there with like a cow skull on it. And so he goes, "Well, let's go out to the desert, man. Let's go to the desert." And he and I walked right out into desert, and we just walked along this dry riverbed that was just stones. And we didn't talk. He didn't talk very much. And we came to these rocks. It's really hot. And we just sat. And I said, "I know what this is. This is like, am I going to crack or not?" I knew about people who'd worked on Platoon. And he sat on a rock, and I sat on a rock, and we didn't say anything. And I was really hot, and I was really thirsty. And all you could hear was the buzzing of some bees nearby. And we sat there for about 20 minutes. And then we walked back. And so I've walked in the desert with Oliver Stone.
What'd you say?
She said something nasty about you, Oliver. She just came back out of her hole, Oliver. She came out of the hole. Instant caramel pour.
We'll stand on the left side, on this side of Gary's shoulders. Well, Gary does cross over here. I think the role of the director is a bit like the guy in the circus that's got the gun and the whip, and he's making the bears go around in the circle, and he's trying to got a whistle and a trombone, and he's running from circle to circle, trying to keep the 6 acts going at the same time. No, I'd like you to take me to that position. Yeah, that'd be great.
Take a 32, take 7, Mark.
Sort of the MC, circus trainer, animal trainer, host at the party, and then you know, trying to get in touch with the inside of yourself as the writer, trying to bring out the text, trying to coax the actors into sharing your vision, sharing your belief, and getting the crew to move in the same direction at the same time, reaching an agreement. Good idea, Bob. Great fucking idea.
It's my first idea of this whole film. Oliver, you're such a visualist. I think you're the best. You're the best,
He's
Oliver.
visionary and a good communicator.
Yep.
And he works well with women.
Are we on now?
Yeah.
Oh,
Tell me a story.
sorry. No, he was always interested in movie, in writing, doing his own little interpretation of a story when he was 6, 7 years old. And it was very, very amusing. He used his cousin as an actor. Everybody was an actor on his little scene.
Oliver is like, of course, you know, his father is Jewish and his mother is Catholic. And I think the childhood of Oliver reflects his controversy. Oliver is born in a controversy marriage. And those conflicts in his childhood, they still be part of him.
I think of my childhood as another country, across a wide gulf, a place I visited many years ago. It was an idyllic time and a very happy time. My parents seemed to be very much in love, and they were both strong people. I was an only child, which gave me a lot of time to think and to write and to read and to play and to really live inside my own imagination. So probably my people skills, as they call them now, were not the greatest. My mom was French, and I was raised half French, really. Basically, I spoke French before I spoke English. So Mom had that immigrant blood, which was fresh blood. And she was never cynical about anything, nothing jaded. Whereas my father's side of the family was much more pessimistic and dark and cynical in a lot of ways.
Oliver got from his father one thing. He got his sturdiness and his doing thing. If he starts something, he kept on doing it to the end. He never stopped. Me, I was more light. I let him do what he pleased. Well, I was young and I was very alive. I needed to go out dancing and everything. So he had a young mammy, and he loved it too. He loved seeing me dress at night and going to say good night to him. But we never left him alone. He always was somebody there. He had first an English nanny. Then when we moved, we had a man, Carlo, who really was absolutely adorable. He was Yugoslav, and he used to do everything Oliver wanted. He was really Oliver's man. And he used to take care of him, play with him, ping pong, whatever was it. And he raised him on one way. And that was his life.
My childhood ended, in a sense, at the age of 15 when my parents divorced. And I found out a lot of things about life that I had really totally shocked me. You know, the world was upside down, that my parents were really into separate lives and had separated in many senses years before, and that I didn't know about it. I felt betrayed. Basically, I broke down in the sense of I couldn't live anymore in America. Totally sort of at wit's end, and feeling very negative about my life and myself in general. I went into the Army as anonymous PFC. I wanted to be anonymous. I didn't want any favoritism. I didn't want to be an officer. I wanted just to be like everybody else.
Hey, Taylor, how in the fuck you get here anyway? Oh, you look educated.
I volunteered for it.
You do what?
I volunteered. I dropped out of college and told him I wanted the infantry, combat, Vietnam.
You volunteered for this shit, man?
You believe that?
My first day in Vietnam was very similar to Charlie Sheen's, but in that I knew right away that I was in deep and that this was serious. They put me up on point my first day. You know, you don't know your way around. You're not smart about the bush. If a Viet Cong had been there, he would have just shot me between the eyes. I would have walked right up on him. I wouldn't have been able to know what I was doing, you know. And then they put me out on ambush, I think the first night, all night. I had to stay up all night, and they made me get up the next day and go back out on flank or something. I got the picture pretty fast, and, you know, I realized that there was no camaraderie, all that horse shit you read about in the, you know, in people's romanticized versions of war, that we were basically a drafty army, and then nobody gave a shit about Oliver Stone. It was like a nightmare, you know, like everything you've been trained to do, and advanced infantry training, you know, like, then you do this, you go for your grenade first because you don't want to give away your rifle fire, but then you blow your claymore after your grenade, claymore, then, well, I couldn't do any of the three. And I started to fire once the firing broke out, and I had the safety on the goddamn M16. I was so, you know, rattled and so nervous.
Our hearts were broken because it was awful, that war. He wrote me a story that he never mentioned it on any interview, but I'm going to tell you. The awful thing about his thing of Vietnam was the marécage, you know, the water bed, and they were up to the waist into water, and leeches would come and climb into his, that they had to tie up their little penis, they had to tie up their penis that the leeches don't go inside and to their intestine. That's what he wrote me. So what do you feel, how I feel? It was awful.
Oliver and his platoon saved our lives one day. We'd walked right into the middle of a U-shaped ambush. And we all thought we were going to die. We thought they were going to get up and come out of their bunkers with their 45s and finish us off when it got dark. And I had one bullet left. Our whole unit had one bullet left. I shot it into the air, and that was the signal for 2nd Platoon to come up. They had been out of the fire, out of harm's way to this point. And Oliver came running up, and I said, "You guys be careful. They're all over the place out there. We've lost a lot of men. There's guys dying out there." And he said, "Don't worry about it. We'll go get them." And they jumped over the anthills. They went up there to get the Viet Cong and NVA, and there was a lot of shooting going on, hand grenades. And I was afraid all of them had gotten killed. And then they came crawling back, and Oliver had been wounded, and I think all of them had been wounded. But they had done their best to save us, and I credit them with saving my life and their survivors of our platoon that day.
He wrote me, he saved the life of his little platoon, because the morning, I said, how can he do such a thing? Because how can Oliver even kill somebody, you know? I could not even think. When you're the mother, you see your son as a, how could they have killed another person, you know?
In my tour in Vietnam, I just got more and more of a rebel as I went. I started to hang out with the black guys and doing a lot of marijuana and seeing the world from a new vantage point, their way. Listening to their music for the first time, listening to the Doors, listening to Motown, getting a new fix on the world, a new fix on life.
All the army was smoking grass. They did not entertain them well over there, you know. They did not give them, like the First World War, they were entertained. They were smoking grass, they had company of each other, and that's all. I excuse him completely. And then he arrived, and he had little grass with him in San Diego, and he was arrested.
I went to Mexico with my marijuana from Vietnam, and I came back, and they busted me for federal smuggling, which is a serious charge. They threw me into the San Diego County there, facing 5 to 20 years. And the jail had about 5,000 kids in it. They were mostly black and Hispanic, and they were all there for drugs. Nixon's border war on drugs. I was stunned. It was an America that I had never believed was possible. I was coming from one war, and all of a sudden, in 10 days, I'm in a San Diego jail facing 5 to 20 years and a war at home with all these alienated kids hating the government. It was an underclass of America with a K, you know. It was shocking to me. And these kids in prison, I thought I was tough, but they were like saying, hey, man, it's not just about Vietnam, man. It's over here, man. And, you know, all that rap and talking to me about what was going on in the States. And, you know, Nixon was this bad guy. And it was just shocking. I got out through my dad scraped. I told my father, I hadn't even told him I got back from Vietnam, and I said to him, called him. I got one phone call, which they finally allowed me to make after about 3 to 6 days. I forgot. I got a call. I said, hey, Dad. He said, Guy, where have you been? You know, you're out of Vietnam? I said, yeah, that's the good news. You want to hear the bad news? He said, what? I said, well, Dad, I'm here in prison. And he said, oh, shit. And I remember that, oh, shit, that he said. Like, he knew that I'd be in bad news again. You know, I'd be in trouble all my life. He felt like I was a bum. I'd always be in trouble. So by the time I got out of jail and, you know, got back to the city, 10 days in jail and facing 5 to 20 years, I was a nervous wreck. I had a whole different warped view of America. It seemed to me that America was at war with itself. It was like a civil war was going on here. I just fought this war in Asia, and then I come back here, and it was like being hit in the back of the head, you know. And people are saying, there's this another war you don't even know about at home.
And these were all niggas. We're all Viet Cong. And I'll tell you, those stone Viet Cong niggas right now, we just talked to them in Sweden, and they said, we're driving into Cambodia. We are kicking the shit out of the CIA and their puppets right now. And they're stone Viet Cong niggas, and they're fighting like motherfuckers.
At that point, he was very angry and kind of wired to detonate. I don't know what his social life was like. You know, I just see him at film school. I know that there was a real intense side to him, you know, where I thought, like, he's the type of guy who could wind up on a rooftop, you know, with an M1 if he hadn't become who he is today.
How long has he been looking for Wells?
For a long time. He misses him again and again. By seconds. By inches.
Why doesn't he give up?
When you know him as well as I do, you'll know why. I think I was lucky in that the very first professor who stands up in front of the class is this lunatic with long hair and black, dark eyes, talking a mile a minute, and Love and Film is this Marty Scorsese, you know, and he's like filled with the passion of a disciple of Christ who has just discovered the Holy Grail, you know. He's a believer, and right away you knew you were, you know, I knew I was in the company of another madman, and I felt comfortable.
The best I could do was try to make everyone understand the opportunity that was out there within their grasp right at that time to take advantage of it. And if you had just a little bit of storytelling power, a little bit, and you understood a little bit of film technique, you'd come up with something. But that's probably the thing, that's probably the element that he grasped onto and held onto so much. That there was a real passion for it, and a real passion for using film as an artistic expression.
I think Scorsese at one point just said, you know, forget all this academic stuff you're doing. Just go into your own personal experience and dig something out and be real with yourself. So I went into myself and I pulled out my own feelings and shot myself, starring myself as a veteran coming back from the war. And it's a film about coming to terms with his loneliness and his pain, and taking all the memories of the war, the medals and the pictures, and throwing them away and being free of that memory. And I shot some footage, some bird footage, and I put a Russian soundtrack on from Borodin, and I had my first wife read French text from Louis Ferdinand Céline, Journey to the End of Night, which is very dark and pessimistic text, which makes no sense, but it has a, I don't know, it seemed to have something quality to it that people liked. After film school, I thought I was a director, you know, and it was hard for me to accept lowly writer status, but there were no jobs in the film business. I wrote 11 scripts in so many years, and you'd send them out, and you'd send them out, and nobody would even read them. It was a real setback, and I drove a cab for a long time, actually. And it was just a long haul of neglect and rejection. I kept writing scripts. I wrote another couple. I wrote Platoon in very few weeks, actually, in the July '76. Nobody wanted to make the movie, but they kind of liked the writing. And as a result, the Columbia Pictures people wanted me to write Midnight Express, which they had just bought. They introduced me to Alan Parker and David Putnam, and they sent me to England. And I don't think that Alan and David knew what I was, or, you know, they thought I was a little bit one of these strange Americans that they'd put up with, and then they'd get rid of them, and then they'd rewrite the script. But to be honest, Alan and David really very much liked the script I did, and they shot it pretty much that way, and that was an important first step for me.
I'm deeply honored, and on behalf of all the Midnight Express people, and with some consideration for all the men and women all over the world who are in prison tonight, I thank you.
Oliver was much wilder then. He was young and had long flowing black hair and these mischievous eyes and a great wolfish grin. He was full of vim and vinegar.
You're talking about Elizabeth. Tell us how you met her.
Oh, God.
You can do it.
I met Elizabeth in 1979, right after Midnight Express came out, and I liked her very much right away. I saw her eyes and her smile, and I thought she was a very gracious lady. Ugh, I hate that way it sounds. I fell in love with her, and married in 1981, and had Sean, and he's been raised very solidly. She's a great mom, and very practical Southern girl from Texas, very fundamentalist. No, that's not the right word. I hate this. I'm not going to go on with it. Come on, give me a break. God, this is terrible. Not fundamentalist. She's not a fucking fundamentalist. She's a country girl. And has country girl values. She had 6 brothers and sisters, totally opposite of me. Came from a very hard-scrabble existence. And went to a one-room schoolroom type thing, you know, sort of walked to school every day. I think she represents to me a lot of the opposite values that I grew up with. And there's something about her which reminds me, evokes, I suppose, the freckled blonde girl next door. And I think that's part of my continuing attraction to her. I gotta go now. I'm not gonna go on with this. Oh, seriously,
He's walking off the set.
To be continued.
I hate that one. The hand was sideways again. It was set me back. It was a painful film to get made. It was my first feature in Hollywood, a big movie with money, And I got to work with 52 hands, special effects, machines, crawling all over the place. It was a very complicated film to make, actually. The film opened to no business, very poor business, and certainly mediocre reviews. Any heat that I had garnered from my Academy Award off Midnight Express was lost, and this business is an extremely tough one. It's ruthless. The roulette wheel moves on.
Did I detect a note of some cynicism about Hollywood? And there was a project which you described as a bittersweet disappointment recently in the New York Times. Al Pacino was to have starred in your screenplay version of Ron Kovic's Born on the 4th of July.
Yes.
Fell through. When is it going to be revived?
No. We were 4 days away from shooting. We had a great director. We had the whole cast and crew. We rehearsed. We had 8 drafts of the screenplay, and the German co-financing fell apart about 4 days before.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were in the war in the 25th Infantry Division in the Army. You were wounded a couple of times, got the Bronze Star. Do you feel because of that experience you're more qualified as a writer-director?
I had a drug problem with cocaine I thought was really ruining my mind.
Tough question. I would just like to do a simple film about it, and a realistic one about the men in the jungle and what it was like.
But I always stayed writing. I never stopped writing. That was a drive in me that was there. I mean, no matter how hungover I was, believe me, I would get up and I would write. The test of a man I always felt would be to write with a hangover. But I do think that cocaine, at a certain point when I started to do more of it, and heroin a little bit, started to just, the brain stultifies, the brain cells die. The work was just, it was there. I was being productive, but I wasn't really liking the work that much. And at that point, I decided I'm going to cut this out. And I went cold turkey, and I moved to Paris with Elizabeth, my new wife, Elizabeth. And we moved there in '81. And then we went into the cold of the winter. And it was a great experience. And I wrote Scarface really straight, very straight.
You're all a bunch of fucking assholes. You know why? You don't have the guts to be what you want to be. You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
I worked for him. I was his assistant for about the first 6 years we were together. Mostly he was writing scripts, I'd say about 1 a year. And I think it was watching other directors take his visions and change them that really propelled him into demanding that he direct his own projects.
I said, this is it. I'm just going to direct a picture, which I'm going to put up my own money. I'll mortgage the house, and my wife agreed to that, and we did it.
Motherfucker, you want to take the wheel out? Come on, come on. Action. Action.
Nothing was going to stop me at that point. I was just so bummed out by the system. So I'd been so cornered and hemmed and hawed and, you know, cut off. And that I think all my sort of frustration broke out. And I put everything I could as if it was, I was making it as if it was my last movie that I would ever make.
I think this is one of the worst shooting I've been involved. But I have the strong feeling that it will may easily become one of the best films I've ever been done. He's not a very experienced director, and that makes sometimes things difficult. But working with him alone 8 weeks, what had made me to be more accommodate to his style and try to get what he wants, no matter how weird it sounds.
You said Guatemala, man. You didn't say anything about El Salvador. Come on, I've never been out of the country. They kill people here, Boyle.
You believe everything you read in the papers?
Yeah,
Come on,
I do.
man. You're gonna love it here. Give it a joint. Look, Doc, this is my last chance, man. I'm serious. If I can get some good combat shots for AP, you know, I can make some money. So I can pay you back.
You better pay me back.
I was quite happy just to do a character study of this rascally journalist friend of mine and his sort of Hunter Thompson attitude towards life, you know, like he wings down there basically for selfish reasons, and in a strange, ironic way, he gets involved, and before he knows it, he's wearing his heart on his sleeve, and he starts to care.
You haven't looked through a lens in a while, have you, Rich? Come on, take some pictures. There's fresh bodies up there.
Time have you got up?
24 or 28.
I honestly believe to this day that Reagan, as president, really would have had a war down there in 1985 area if there had not been a very strong consensus of citizens, private citizens' bodies that were really fighting hard to keep us out of Central America, protesters and dedicated people. Everybody you meet in Salvador is a victim in some way of the oppression. The death squads are really ugly and American creations in a sense because they do stem from Vietnam.
Lock and load!
I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee, and I'm going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. Oh.
There had been no real field movies made that depicted the life of the infantryman in the field. Combat on a regular basis. 35% of the guys that served in the infantry died, and Oliver showed that. He showed what it was like to the infantryman. We had not been honored until that movie. We had this, I don't know if it was honored is the word, but the story had not been told of what we went through. And people didn't realize just how very difficult it was to survive out there in the field. It was a slaughterhouse.
Oh, I think with Charlie, it was like when I cast him, he walked in, I'll never forget it, because I'd met a lot of young men. But when he walked in, I knew it was him. The moment he walked into the door, he just felt right. It was in his eyes, it was in his posture. He felt so like my younger self 20 years ago that it was frightening.
Hold it. That's it.
This is right.
Now let it out.
I don't feel anything.
I loved him. I mean, he was just like loving yourself, I guess. It's a certain element of narcissism enters into it. But just wholly loved him, and I devolved on him all my feelings and fears, and wanted him to, I just wanted to help him in any way that I could, like a son.
It was, I don't want to say eerie at times, but I was able to watch Oliver watching me, and I could tell that he was getting back to that place. Flashing back a little bit from time to time, certain scenes that I know, based on conversations that we had, I know he actually did. Acts he committed some 20 years ago. The village, which had stood for maybe 1,000 years, didn't know we were coming that day. If they had, they would have run.
I was very torn, because I had moments when I acted like an asshole, when I shot at people, or tried to. I remember making one old man who was driving me nuts, I made him dance. I was firing bullets at his feet, and I wanted him to, like, beg.
Man, come on, let's go, man.
Fucking pussy, man. He's laughing at you. That's the way the gook laughs. Yeah, sure you are. You're real sorry, ain't you? You're just crying your little hearts out about Sandy and Sal and Manny.
Forget about it, Bunny, huh? Let's go. What do you say?
Holy shit, you see that fucking head come apart, man?
The most difficult scene for me was the kid with one leg in the hooch when Kevin Dillon loses his mind and kills everybody and smashing heads, and where the Taylor character had to start to make that transition, you know, start to understand that he is just as capable of becoming Barnes, you know, as Barnes could have been him at some point years ago.
I cockadoo! Barnes! Barnes! What the fuck do you think you're doing?
Stay out of this, Elias. This ain't your show.
You ain't a firing squad, you piece of shit! Get no!
Elias and Barnes, people that I have very first-hand experiences with, I lived through both men and loved them both in their own ways. Barnes was another man's name, and he was a sergeant in my first cavalry unit for a while. He was a very frightening man. He'd been wounded, I think, 7 times. And one of those times he'd been shot in the head.
Don't lie! Don't lie! There you go, Sarge.
Whereas Elias was a sergeant in my first, my long-range recon patrol. And I loved him. He was a sort of a Jim Morrison type. Very sexy, very dark. Great sense of humor, dope smoker, great soldier. But I think that I hypothesized out of his character the sense of America splitting apart, you know, between the hawks and the doves, if you will. I mean, that Barnes did not like, quote, gooks, and made that very clear, whereas Elias had no beef with them. I went to the wall in Washington, and I looked, and there it was, this exact date when he died, in May of '68. And he was on the wall, which is a beautiful, the wall is shredding experience. And I was just so sad because he was such a great-looking kid, so full. He was Jim Morrison, you know, my Jim Morrison of that time. Just to see him die so young at the age of 23 or 4, so sad.
The war is over for me now, but it will always be there, the rest of my days. As I'm sure Elias will be, fighting with Barnes for what Rock called possession of my soul. There are times since I've felt like the child born of those 2 fathers. But be that as it may, those of us who did make it have an obligation to build again. To teach to others what we know, and to try with what's left of our lives to find a goodness and meaning to this life.
It was like a dream for the next year of my life or whatever. This film went around the world like a fire. It just took off. people, you know, it just affected people. Women that had never cared for war films, and people who hated Vietnam as a subject, people who protested it. It just seemed to, as a good film can do, it just seemed to cross barriers and heal wounds and unify as opposed to divide.
His father, he did not see Platoon. He died in 85. But I'm sorry that he did not see, because that will have pleased him very much.
And my father used to, when I was around 7 or 8, we used to give me a quarter every week if I wrote a theme about anything. It gave me the ability to do something on paper, which gave me, it opened up a world to me that the imagination could be put actually directly on paper. It didn't have to be expressed just by playing games or screaming and yelling and running around. That you could put cowboys and Indians on a piece of paper.
Blue Star, Mr. Mannheim. Put all your clients in.
Wall Street was actually dedicated to Oliver's father. Lou Mannheim, the Hal Holbrook character, personified a lot of Oliver's impressions of his dad. He actually said a lot of the things that Lou had said. Lou was on Wall Street for 50 years. He was a soft-spoken man, but a great believer in the American system. And he loved Wall Street, and he loved his life there.
There was a mood from my youth that I remember very distinctly of going down to Wall Street in those tiny buildings with very little light, and one felt men in suits were like gods. So I wanted to sort of deal with a clash between what I had seen with my father's world and what was going on in the 1980s. And I tried to do that through the character of this young man, I guess an idealistic form of myself. Like if Charlie Sheen had never gone to Vietnam, and if he had been his father's son, maybe he would have gone to work on Wall Street. And he would have been tempted.
I've been in this business since '69. I remember the first scene I had to do was the seduction scene with Charlie Sheen in the back of the limousine, when I tried to seduce him into becoming a player, liquid cash, the amount of money. And I remember it was the first day, and there was some computer work to do, and we were rushing, light was going, and it always has an edge with Oliver, which is great, which is like on the edge, and Bobby Richardson, the handheld camera, and the lights going, and you're going, and all I know is I got a long monologue to do, very long monologue. But it went okay. You know, I was a little nervous, but you also learn after the years that sometimes nerves show or don't show on screen, just like anything else. And then we did the 21 Club scene. And we were shooting that. We're in the middle of that was my second scene. And Oliver came in to the trailer, sat down, he said, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Yeah." "You okay?" I said, "Yeah, man, I'm fine." "You doing drugs?" I said, "No, I'm not doing any drugs. Because you look like you never acted before in your life." Well, Gordon Gekko went. I said, what do you mean? I said, you look like shit. You look like you never acted in your life before.
My father, he worked like an...
I went in the editing room the next day, and he put up on the machine the scene, the limousine. And I'm looking at it, I said, I guess it looks pretty good. I don't know, it's pretty good. So I go in to see him. I said, "Oliver," the next day, I don't know. I mean, I saw it. I thought it was pretty good. He said, "It is, isn't it?" And I thought, and then, as it turns out, a director wants. And I turned on him. I remember I said, why would you do that? Why would you undermine, or try to do that? And what he did, as you learn, is he forced you, or forced me, to go to the bottom of your soul, whatever anxiety and fears that you had. And he was not afraid, as opposed to being a patriarch, to being this fatherly figure, was not afraid as an actor for you to direct all of your hostility and all of your anger right out to him.
And he came up to me after a really difficult scene, and he sort of took me aside. He sort of put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, I've seen the rushes, Eric. And I said, "Yeah." And he said, it's not going to work. It's no good. And he just walked away from me. I asked him later whether he said that to me just to get me going. Was it a psychological thing? And he couldn't give me a straight answer, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
What if we went back to things don't change, so don't matter, fuck all to me, things don't change. The idea being that things don't change, you're in the gutter. Things don't change in the gutter. Things don't change in the gutter.
Yo, don't matter. You put me on the sound, tell the same goddamn story. Don't matter, fuck all to me. Things don't change. See, you got to be in the gutter to smell the gutter. I'm in the gutter. I love the gutter.
I'm always trying to find a new way to show the actor, to have him countering his previous moves, to bring out some quality that's there that no one else has seen. That gives me some excitement. It's sort of like a teacher or a father figure.
Man, Mr. Garrison, I get out of here, I'm gonna come see you. You're not bad looking at all.
I'm gonna tie you up. I'm gonna tie you up. I'll tie you up real good.
In many ways, a director is like a daddy on the set. And in many ways, all people they take a position of like children. Whether they're bad children or good children, we're all children. And there's an unfocus that can descend on a set if there isn't somebody really making it clear that you're all moving together toward an objective. And in Oliver's case, he does it with this pushing and driving, and it all feels like it's just so dire.
Oh, shit. Shit.
What do you want? What's...
They're framed. We put the horses in.
Well, I can back that up.
No, let's just shoot the old way. God damn it.
Tell me what you said.
Come on, guys, we ain't gonna make it unless we get going.
What's wrong?
It becomes existential. It's like you're going to lose your whole identity if you can't please Oliver. And that ends up delivering so much more when you finally look at what you've shot.
You got to be in the gutter to smell the gutter. I love the gutter.
Well, thank you, Willie. We'll be in touch.
On your right. Oliver, on your right, please. Oliver, wait, guys, can you turn a little more?
Well, I think Oliver would like to consider himself always an outsider. I think he has it both ways. He's earned the respect. I mean, he's making mainline, pictures that are big budgeted. And I like to tease him. I know he's got a couple of houses. Everybody'd like to think he's still living in a small apartment and everything else, but he's got a good life. But he works hard, and he deserves it.
I remember when I first met him, he hated to own anything. He wouldn't buy a house, wouldn't buy a car. He said, that's a terrible thing, because it becomes a responsibility.
When did Alex say that?
In the interview we did with him.
When was that? In Dallas?
He'll be so happy just shooting and cutting his films, period, so that he doesn't deal with this stuff. But I think he matured a lot. Now he, have all these things you have to deal with.
But he's just talking about the Oliver Stone that he first met when you guys first started working together.
You mean what you're asking me what my relationship is to money?
Yes.
As I said earlier, I just never had that much money when I was younger. I thought my family was rich when I was up till about the age of 14, and then from 14 to about 40, well, actually 14 to about 34, I had nothing, barely, struggling. And when I got money, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the freedom it's given me and the power, and I've enjoyed the being able to buy things I like.
Good catch.
He's going for the touchdown.
I find this very corny in a kind of funny way, where I'm living like the second grade primer, with a fence and with a dog and with a dog named Spot and a boy named Sean, and I get a kick out of it. I feel of it and not of it at the same time. And my wife has always been very understanding of my nature and giving me a lot of freedom. It's never closed in on me. I think that if it did, I would probably be the first to run. So I find it's been easy. It's been easy living with Elizabeth and Sean, and I've really enjoyed it.
I don't know what it's like for other people who have their life stories made, but I felt a part of this process. We had completely different backgrounds. He came from the upper middle class. I came from the working class. But you know, that war had a tremendous effect on the people that we became and on the art that we created after that war ended.
He's the brother I never had, and he was in a sense, his story was larger than mine, because I was interested in developing my own movie, my own story about my own experiences when I came back from Vietnam. But I always found that story to be smaller in scope, that Ron's coming from really a lower middle class background, really amplified the Vietnam veteran.
I fought for my country. I am a Vietnam veteran. I fought for my country. I deserve to be treated for decent. Vietnam. Decent. I earned that right, you fuck. Vietnam don't mean nothing to me, man. Or any of these other people. You got it? You can take your Vietnam and shove it up your ass.
In reality, my change, and most veterans' changes, I thought was slower. I think Ron was right on the front lines of protest and awareness, and he, you know, the wound so traumatized him, being in the Veterans Hospital, so angered him and radicalized him, and his reading accelerated, and he changed much quicker than I did. In 1972, I was still on the sidelines.
Vietnam veterans against this war. Stop the bombing! Stop the bombing! Stop the bombing!
What do you have to say to these people?
My name is Ron Kovic. I'm a Vietnam veteran. My name is Ron Kovic. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I'm here tonight to say that this war is wrong, that this society lied to me, it lied to my brothers. It deceived the people in this country.
I could die tomorrow, and I would feel that my life had meaning, that I accomplished my purpose on this earth, and that my sacrifice, the loss of 3/4 of my body in that war, was not in vain, and that I did something with my life with the help of Oliver Stone. And together, we were able to take a very tragic circumstance and turn it into something beautiful, something meaningful, and something lasting.
My deepest thanks for your acknowledgement that Vietnam is not over, although some people say it is, but that Vietnam is a state of mind that continues all over the world for as long as men in his quest for power interfere in the affairs of other men.
What's he scared of?
Dying. He was. And I think we are all sometime when we cross the age of 40. Oliver is scared of dying before he accomplished the last pictures.
What am I afraid of?
Your whole life is bullshit! If you love me, come on out and get me! Man, get back inside! Man,
When I was doing the Jim Morrison story, I kept running into this concept of death. I mean, he was living with Jim. He was half in love with death.
Take two!
I don't want to die.
I think part of making that movie was at the end was Jim's acceptance and serenity with death and his love of it, and it came true. His wish came true, and he was smiling in that bathtub.
Stone's failing is that he doesn't really separate himself out from these sort of hero worshipy central characters, ranging from you know, Jim Morrison to Ron Kovic to Jim Garrison, you know, there are all these kind of sacrificial angels who are impaled on their own self-righteousness and given, you know, sort of banished by a society that refuses to accept their truth.
Y'all got to start thinking on a different level, like the CIA does. Now, we're through the looking glass here, people. White is black, and black is white. Just maybe Oswald is exactly what he said he was. A patsy.
With the JFK film, I'm kind of resolving a lot of things. It's my 7th straight film, and I have a sense of peace, actually, in spite of all this storm and drang that the film has raised, because I feel in my heart that it's solid work, it's good work, and it will withstand the test of time. And it is a movie that will be looked back on. Whatever they say, I do believe that that happened, that Kennedy was killed in a coup d'etat, and he was killed by the forces in our government.
Turn the body over.
Lift it, Donnie. Lift it, lift it.
Thanks.
Where's the entry wound?
The entry wound is here. You notice
the bullet has to go from
heading
here,
downward.
and then they say it came out the throat. Now look at the difference.
Yeah, heading downward from the 6th floor. If that was the entrance wound, the exit wound would have been here somewhere, where there was no damage.
Action.
Stand here.
Rain comes out. Flash.
Pop.
Rain comes out. Walk through the camera. Good.
Here, I found this on the floor. FBI? Here.
The last question. Did you mean to imply in JFK that the U.S. government might be implicated in the assassinations of both Martin Luther King Jr. and Bobby Kennedy?
Yes.
I think Stone is a great showman, and clearly one of the ways that you get a movie out there is to create a kind of situation for your film where you're not just going to have, you know, pointy-headed, nerdy film critics haggling over your movie, but you're going to get it onto the op-ed pages. You're going to get Tom Wicker and Anthony Lewis and George Will and Patrick Buchanan and Michael Kinsley, and all these people are going to be writing about your movie. It's going to take it beyond just being a film.
The Chekhov said that, you know, if I had listened to my critics, I would have died in the gutter. I've always made the films out of my own, where it comes from my heart, and I've done it for the people. I believe in the concept of movies as a democratic element, that people will come if you touch their heart and their soul, not if you touch a critic's mind. But when you look at a movie, what you're looking at, essentially, I think, is a director's thought process. And when the film becomes tedious, it's because the director's thought process is becoming tedious. So it's the director's responsibility to sort of stay interesting, I suppose. And the only way you stay interesting is to stay interested in the world around you. Otherwise, you start to die. You know, he not busy being born is busy dying.
And let's move on.
Check again.